This video is about using coordinates in a coordinate plane. So, in number one, we're using the coordinates to find the length of each side. So if I have a corner that is FG, and I know that my one corner is on the origin, 0, 0, that can help me find my other 2 points. So in the upper left, if I'm on the y-axis, that will mean I'll have a 0 coordinate for x, and it's even with the other point, so I'm going to have the same y coordinate, which in this case is g. Now when we switch to the bottom right, because it's on the x-axis, I'm going to have a 0 y coordinate, and my f coordinate is going to stay the same for x. So if I want to find the length of each side, I know I went from 0 up to g, so this means it has a length of g for both sides. And if I go from the sides that are horizontal, I went from 0 to f, so each side is f. In B, we have a scalene triangle. And remember, again, we're starting at the origin 0, 0. So my vertical side went from 0, 0 to 0w, which means it has a length of w. And then I went from 0 to q, which means I have a length of q. Now, finding the diagonal side is a little bit harder, but remember that if we have the x-axis and the y-axis intersecting, this is perpendicular, so it's creating a right angle. So I can just use Pythagorean theorem to find that missing side. So w squared plus q squared equals x squared. We'll call this x for now. So to find that, I just take the square root of both, so w squared plus q squared. So I have the square root of w squared plus q squared. Number 3, DE is a mid-segment of triangle OBC. Find the coordinates of D and E. So I know that D is a mid-segment, which makes this congruent, and E is a mid-segment, which makes this congruent. So when I'm looking at this, I need to figure out how I got from O to B. So if O to B is split into 2 congruent parts, B is the midpoint. So I need to look at what's between 2Q and 0, because remember when we do the midpoint, it's your x is added together and divide by 2, and your y is added together and divide by 2. So when I do that, 0 plus 2q is 2q divided by 2 is q, and the same thing gets me r. So I have qr as my d coordinate. For E, remember that E is the midpoint of BC, so we're going to do the same thing again. 2q plus 2p over 2, 2r plus 0 over 2. So in this case, 2q plus 2p is going to divide to just q plus p and r. It should make sense that our y coordinate's the same because it's a parallel line. And if the or the y coordinates were the same for O and C, then D and E would be the same coordinates. Number 4, sketch triangle ABC and find the midpoints of each side. So we have A is at 0, 0. We have C is at 2p comma 0. Now we don't really know where that is, but we know it does have to be on the x-axis because 0 is the y coordinate. And then B, we don't know where it is, but we know that P has to be between 2p. So we know it has to be halfway between. So I'm going to go about halfway between. Doesn't matter how far up because we don't know what Q is. We're going to call that B. So now we have our triangle. And B is at P comma Q. So we need to find the midpoints of each segment. So if I'm going to find the first midpoint of AB, I have 0 plus P over 2, 0 plus Q over 2. So that leaves us with 1/2 P and 1/2 Q. Then when I look at from B to C, I have P plus 2P over 2 and Q plus 0 over 2. Well, P plus 2P is 3P, divided by 2 just gets us 3 over 2P, and Q plus 0 is Q, divided by 2 is 1/2 Q. Then to find the missing point between A and C, I have 0 plus 2p over 2 and 0 plus 0 over 2. So 2p divided by 2 is just p, 0 divided by 0 or by 2 is just 0. So I have all of my midpoints now of the three sides of the triangle. 5. D, E, and F are midpoints. Find the coordinate of C, D, and E. So if I know the midpoint is D for that first side of AB, I can just do 2 plus 8 over 2, 3 plus 11 over 2, and that gets us the coordinates 5, 7. Then when I look at F, that's going to help me get C. If F is the midpoint, I need to know how much did I change to get from 2 to 6. Well, to get from 2 to 6, I added 4. So if I add 4 again, my X coordinate's 10. Then from 3 to 0, I subtracted 3. So if I subtract 3 again, I get negative 3. So my C coordinate is 10, negative 3. And then E is a midpoint again. And now that I know C, I can just do the midpoint formula. So 8 plus 10 over 2. And 11 plus negative 3 over 2, which gets us the coordinate 9 and 4. C, L is the midpoint of DO and EZ. Find the coordinates of DE and Z. So if L is the midpoint of those two sides, I know that this has to be congruent to, I know that LE has to be congruent to LZ, and I know that DE has to be congruent to ZE. So if the two sides are coordinate or congruent and we have vertical angles here, thinking back to the last chapter, remember that these two sides, DE and ZE, are also congruent. Okay, so now let's use the coordinate of O to help us find length. So if the coordinate is 4, negative 6, that means I went down 6, which means I have a length of 6 here, and I went over 4, which means I have a length of 4 here. Because that's how we get to our coordinates. We're 4 off of the x-axis, and we're 6 down the y-axis. So if now I can mark my congruent sides, which will then help me find my points. So this is 6, and this is 4. Now we just got to pay attention to what coordinate we're in. So if this has a length of 6 from L to Z, and we're on the bottom of the y-axis, we have a negative coordinate, so we have 0, negative 6, which means E went from the origin up 6, so our coordinate would be 0, 6. And then D is even with E, so it's going to have a y coordinate of 6. And we went over 4, and we're now in the third quadrant, so negative 4. All right, as a review, remember slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So we need to write the equations in the form they're asking us. So in number 7, write the equation in point slope form. So remember, point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So we have x1, y1, and our m value. So all we're going to do is we're going to substitute in. The thing you have to be careful about is your coordinate always should have the opposite sign in the equation. So I have y, and y was already negative, so it becomes plus 5 equals negative 2/3 x minus 8. And then because I'm in point slope form, I'm done. In number 8, write the equation in slope-intercept form through the point negative 4, 3 with a slope of 2. Now, the problem here is that we don't know our y-intercept, so we can't start in slope-intercept form. We have to start in point slope form. So I have y, x1, y1, and my m. So y minus y1 equals my slope times x minus x1. Well, x1 is already negative, so it becomes plus 4. Then to move to slope-intercept, there's 2 steps. First, we distribute. So y minus 3 equals 2x plus 8. And then we add 3 to both sides. Y equals 2x plus 11. Number 9, write the equation in point slope form that passes through the point 8, -2, and 14, 6. So first I need to find my slope. So it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So remember, two negatives make a positive, so that gets us -4/6, which reduces to -2/3. Now, when I'm writing in point slope form, it doesn't matter which point I pick. So I'm just going to pick the first point, x1, y1. So I have y plus 2 equals 2/3 x minus 8. Number 10, write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form that passes through the 2 points. So first thing I need to do is find my slope. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2, x2 minus x1. Two negatives make a positive, so 10 over 5 reduces to 2. Now, it doesn't matter which point we pick, so this time I'm going to pick the second point. So I have to start in point slope form because I don't know the y-intercept. So y minus 2 equals 2 times x minus 9. And I need 2 steps to get it into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to distribute y minus 2 equals 2x minus 18. And then add 2 to both sides, y equals 2x minus 16.